everyone to the JDC West 2016 Human Resources Case Presentation. Thank you to our judges, Heather Ryan from Federated Cooperative Limited, Cheryl Carver, the Associate VP of Human Resources here at the University of Saskatchewan, Teresa Bure from the Federated Cooperative Limited, Paula Senorita Tengun from Mount Royal University, Marianne Deutscher from K&S Potash Canada, and Kavita Britton from Potash Corp. Competitors will have 20 minutes to present immediately following the presentation. The judges will have a total of 5 minutes to ask the presenters questions. The volunteer timekeeper at the back will show cards at various time intervals to indicate the time remaining, and will stop any speaker who exceeds the time limit. No questions, comments, cell phones, picture taking from the audience at any time. The audience will only be permitted to applaud following the Q&A and is asked to leave the room once Q&A is over. We ask that, that's everything. Competitors, you may begin.
Good afternoon, my name is Janine, and these are my colleagues Raylene and Danny. I would like to start off by thanking everyone from Pareto Engineering for joining us here today. I would also like to say that we at Advantage HR Solutions understand the issues that you are facing as a consulting company, because we too are a consulting company. We have seen these issues and dealt with problems such as yours on a day-to-day basis. So that being said, we are excited to work with you on any of the issues that you may be facing and to show you that our recommendation and implementation is the best way for your company to continue to prosper and achieve a high level of excellence. Here's the agenda for today. Please feel free to follow along with what's been given in front of you. We have identified the primary issue as being Pareto Engineering needs to develop a strategy in order to successfully integrate the former employees and the employees from Pareto in order to achieve their goal of minimizing the loss of revenue to 5%. Directly stemming from the primary issue are the following secondary issues. The first one being the differences in compensation between the Halcyon employees and the Pareto employees. So there is a little bit of differing compensation there. So we just want to bridge that gap and make it more fair to all employees. Secondly, the pushback from Pareto employees. So there is a little bit of conflict there. There is a little bit of issue with the Halcyon employees coming into the workforce. And finally, the client retention due to conflict. So you had mentioned that the conflict among the Halcyon employees and Pareto employees could cause a loss of clientele, which is definitely something that we want to address and make sure doesn't happen. Within our analysis, we have identified some key areas that need to be capitalized on, as well as some areas that could use improvement. So beginning with the internal analysis, the strengths of the company is that you are a large global company. You have 5 divisions in 5 different countries, so you are a big company. People know who you are, and it can only increase your revenue and increase your market share. And finally, the focus on teamwork. So that is something that you have instilled in your company. That is something that your employees already know and are already familiar with. They do work in teams, and this is just something that we want you to keep working on. And I would like to draw your attention to this particular weakness. So the negative posts on the internal discussion forum is quite negative for your company. I just want to draw your attention because it is something that needs to be addressed. The Halcyon employees are directly being targeted on the social media, which can make them feel that they are not integrating with the company. So just want to make you aware of this issue. And finally, the focused attention on the Halcyon employees. So the Pareto employees are feeling that a lot of attention is being devoted to the Halcyon employees and that their issues and their needs aren't being addressed. So again, just be aware of this, and we just want to move forward with you and address this issue. Within our external analysis, we have identified the opportunities as being the assets of the Halcyon employees. So they have a lot of skills, a lot of different skills than the Perito employees, as well as the clientele that they are bringing in. So build on those connections. Use the connections that the Halcyon employees have and work with those. Grow your company. Make sure you take advantage of those connections. And finally, the new clientele that bringing in the Halcyon employees will give you. So you took on about 600 Halcyon employees. 600 is a big number. That will only grow your company, which will only grow your clientele. It may allow you to expand in more countries. Again, just make sure you're aware of this. Make sure you are taking these opportunities and make sure that you are using them to the best of your ability for your company. And the threats we have identified, again, I just want you to make note of the public relations to address this. There was some scandal with the Halcyon employees, and so we just wanted you to address not only your company, but the outside community, that what happened with the small core, individuals at Halcyon does not represent all Halcyon individuals as a whole. That the views of the 600 Halcyon employees are not representative of the 13 that were involved in this scandal in Sierra Leone. And finally, the war on talent. So this is an issue as if employees, current Perito employees are still feeling that conflict and are not integrating with Halcyon employees, they might feel the need to go to other competitors. So again, just be aware of this and just address this. But despite these weaknesses, you are a strong company with good values, and we do believe that the new addition of Halcyon employees will only allow you to grow. And now Raylene is going to discuss our recommendation and alternatives.
At Advantage HR Solution, we have developed 3 strong alternatives in order for your organization to integrate both former Halcyon employees as well as the current Perito employees, and make sure that we are targeting your goal of only having a loss in revenue of a maximum of 5%. In order to ensure that these alternatives are strong, we have compared them against the following criteria. First being a minimized turnover. We understand that with recruiting all these new employees, there is a chance that they may not all stay with your firm, and we want to try and avoid this as much as possible. Secondly would be the maintenance of company culture. Because you are integrating 2 different organizations into one, 2 different sets of employees with different cultures, we want to ensure that the new culture you create at your organization can be maintained. And finally, we want to make sure that any alternative we present to you is financially viable. We want to keep all costs to a minimum as much as we possibly can. And I also would like to make a statement today that no matter which alternative that we provide at HR Advantage Solutions for you, we would like your organization to focus on the change management that is going to be coming within your organization. With this, we would like to develop the following alternatives from that change management. First being a training and development strategy. Second, a compensation-focused strategy. And lastly, a cultural unification strategy. So first, our training and development strategy will focus on the long-term training and develop of all current employees at Perito Engineering. With this, we want your employees to feel comfortable in your organization and be able to develop career paths and develop goals and be confident in the new organization that they work. We believe this alternative is strong and viable, first because it will help employees gain new skills and knowledge. With this, employees will be comfortable working at your organization and will feel confident and powerful in the clients that they are meeting and engaging with work. Secondly, we want to make sure that there is an aligned mission and vision. With this alternative, it is a strong pro. Firstly, because it will, as I said, align these missions of all employees in the organization and unify them all together. We understand that with this alternative, your organization may be firstly concerned with something such as the cost of this alternative. We understand that with training and develop, training all staff, around 2,800 employees, is a large amount. But we do believe that with this, as I said, those skills and that knowledge that comes from it is a positive. And lastly, we understand the time sensitivity of training and development. Your organization may be worried that there's not enough time. It's only been 2 weeks since these employees are now with your organization, and that training and development would last longer than that short implementation period that you are looking for. The second alternative we are presenting to you today is the direct compensation strategy. With this, we would like to increase the salaries for Pareto employees so that all employees, including former Halcyon employees, are all on the same pay scale. With this, we would also like to implement a profit sharing and stock options opportunity at all employees at all levels. We know that this as well is a strong alternative because it does create pay equity within your firm. We want to make sure that all employees feel equal at your organization and feel that they are having the benefits and everything of working at your business. Secondly, it does increase employee recognition. We understand that there are some employees at your firm that are feeling that they aren't being recognized for their work as much or aren't receiving as much outreach. We want to make sure that this playing field is level for all employees and that everyone does feel recognized and that you can communicate that to your employees. Again, your organization may be concerned that this is a quick fix. We are focusing solely here on compensation, and employees may feel that they want more from the organization than just having extra benefits. And lastly, we understand that this does not focus as much on company culture. With the compensation, again, we would be more focusing on the benefits of your organization, what you're providing to employees, but we can integrate more cultural changes in the future. Our last alternative today for you is the cultural unification strategy. So with this strategy, we would like a top-down focus on the cultural integration of all employees, including the former Halcyon and the current Pareto employees. With this, we would like the communication of a refreshed organizational culture. So we want to communicate this new refreshment of new ideas and a new culture to align and unify all employees. This is a strong alternative because it does address the immediate organizational needs. As stated, we understand that this is time sensitive and we want to make sure that this is viable for your organization. Secondly, the unification of employees. We understand that, or we know that this alternative will unify your employees from both organizations and make them feel confident and strong in working together and create that team bonding. We understand that your organization may be concerned, firstly, that it does not address the bureaucracy concerns of your organization. We understand that through surveys, some employees felt that your organization was very bureaucratic, and we would like to address this hopefully further in the future. And lastly, that it does require employee buy-in. We understand that employees have to be committed to this, and this is why we would want to implement a top-down approach. As I stated before, in order to choose the strongest, most viable alternative, we have compared it to the following decision criteria. As you can see from our matrix here, the training and development strategy may not minimize turnover, as there is a chance you can put in this cost to train these employees and they do not stay with your organization. It does maintain the company culture as you're training all employees and they're all being unified under the same training and development skills. And lastly, it is not, as I said, financially viable because there is a chance that, that these costs are quite high. Secondly, the compensation-focused strategy will minimize turnover. There are going to be some employees who are happy that they are getting increased compensation and feel proud to work for your organization. This may not maintain the company culture, just as we said, only sole giving benefits to your employees may not make them feel like they are a part of your organization. And lastly, it is not financially viable as the costs are high. Lastly, the cultural unification will minimize turnover. As we said, it does unite and unify all employees. It will maintain the company culture as you are creating a new company culture for all employees to work together. And it is financially viable as the costs for a cultural unification strategy are not that high. And that is why today, me and my colleagues from Advantage HR Solution are extremely excited to present to you the recommendation that you should pursue a strategy focusing on the unifying of these cultures and bringing both former Halcyon and Pareto employees together. This will help your organization prosper in the future and continue the growth that your organization can achieve. My colleague Danny will now take you through our implementation process.
Thanks, Raylene. I just want to thank you again for giving us this opportunity to work with you and work through these really exciting changes that are happening within your organization. So as Raylene had alluded to, this really the crux of your issue here is change management and employing change management strategies in order to quickly try to stop some of this pushback from your Pareto employees and integrate all employees under one unified vision and mission for your organization. We developed a timeline of immediate term activities of 0 to 6 months to try to address these problems quickly, and then followed by activities of 6 months to 3 years and long-term activities of 3+ years. In the immediate term, the first thing we want to do, we want to suggest to you is what change you want to make and how do you want to unify this culture. And what we would suggest is your integration team to define specific pillars, and we based these off the survey results that you provided to us of where your employees thought you were lacking a little bit in your company. And we've defined 4 pillars as a customer focus, celebrating diversity, accountability, and teamwork. And we want you to base all your activities on these 4 pillars and communicate the importance of these 4 pillars to all of your employees. We want you to have an executive meeting with your integration team and to align the executive team with this new vision. If you want a change to happen in your organization, it has to start at the top, and management level and lower level employees, they won't change unless their superiors are an embodiment of that change. And we think it's super important that you have all executive level employees on board with these new 4 pillars of your company culture. And then we want you to develop a case for the change. And by this I mean, we want you to create a document or release a document of defining exactly why this change is positive for your company, why it's good to bring in 600 super talented people. And this will give clarity to some of those employees that maybe don't understand why you're making this change. And you can show them that 600 new employees with great skills and different connections will only help their careers grow as well as the company grows, and everyone will benefit. And so we want this clearly defined statement to be communicated to all employees through your internal social media platform. And we want to identify the team leaders of each of your functional teams as change agents and reinforcing this change. And at this point, we would also want you to have a press conference to introduce your 600 new employees and introduce the hiring and why it's so exciting and the exciting growth you expect to achieve, and also making a mention of the Halcyon scandal that happened and really reaffirming that these employees were not directly related to the scandal of the 15 specific employees, and that bringing them on board will only help your company grow. And this public presence in the media will help your employees buy in as well. In the short term, we want you to have a rollout of this cultural refreshment of these 4 pillars. We want you to reinforce the pillars at all levels of management, and we would want you to have an open door policy with your employees and your functional teams to discuss these changes and how they'll be changing your work groups and unifying your employees. And we want you to have consistent reminders on internal social media platforms, just constantly reminding your employees of the change and the new unified culture. Another really important thing about change management is communication and constant communication and open lines of communication. And so constant updating on social media is a great way to achieve this. And then we would want to introduce social budgets for your project teams. You have about 250 functional teams, and giving them each a budget to do team building activities would be just a great way to help that team building process. At this point, you want to begin to examine some of the compensation practices of your organization and unify the pay scale. Now, this may mean some employees begin to make more, some begin to make less. We want to work with you to find a nice middle ground. And this may mean that some employees will possibly have a reduction in salary, and this can be a tough decision to be made, but we think that pay equity is a super important thing to have all of your employees aligned with each other. And we would also want to revise some benefits, and we'd want to maybe think about introducing a health spending account, and it's just a great way to give extra benefits to your employees and make them feel more valued by your organization. And at this point, we'd also want to begin evaluation of the cultural refreshment strategy and whether people are, this is effective in joining the two cultures together and whether employees and some of this backlash is stopped. And in the long term, we'd want you to continue the evaluation of the change, regular pulse surveys like the one that you recently conducted, maybe every 6 months, and identify areas maybe needing change or tweaking. And at this point, we maybe in the long term, begin looking at that training and development opportunity that we had described. We think that's more of a long-term strategy, and at this point is when we want you to start looking at that. Some of the costs we've outlined here, just two here. Firstly, the health spending account for your 2,800 employees, if you give them $400 a year, cost of $1.1 million, and your social budget, if you give all 250 functional teams $500, at $125,000, this brings you to a cost of $1.25 million, $225 million, sorry. And we think this is a very justifiable expense considering your large revenues and the great change it'll bring to your organization. Some of the risks are lack of employee buy-in, but through top-down implementation and constant reinforcement, you will mitigate this. And continued negative posts on internal media could also be a problem, but monitoring social media and directly seeking out those individuals will help mitigate this as well. Change in an organization, especially change as large as this, is scary and exciting at the same time. And employing a change management strategy is the strongest way for you to make this change happen effectively. And we are excited to work with you to help you make this change, and we want to be with you every step of the way. And now I'd like to open the floor to some questions.
I just have a specific, just about the compensation. So what you're proposing is actually that we would be rolling back some team members' salaries. Just in that arena, do we have a sort of additional risk in case of a constructive dismissal situation where if we're doing the same role and we're actually asking them to take a pay cut, but we may actually have to incur some additional costs and get into that? Do you have any idea what that looks like in the dollars involved?
We don't have an exact figure of what that cost might be to your organization, but I did want to just reinforce the idea that some of the Halcyon employees are currently have less experience and are making more money than some of your current managers, and making your current manager level employees feel devalued by continuing to have less experienced employees being paid more, I think will come at a greater cost of the potential cost of not reducing some of those high salaries and employing a little more pay equity in the organization.
So you mentioned about creating these 4 pillars as part of the visioning exercise. Did you give any thought to consideration to involving people in the development of the mission and vision of the organization? Or?
Absolutely, yeah. The mission and vision is something that we want to instill in the employees with the change management program. So just to reinforce what we are going with, it's to unite everyone, to make sure that everybody is on the same page, that everybody knows the mission and vision of your company, that everyone is accepting of one another, and yes, and so involving employees in that is crucial. We are directly communicating it to them, and in the hopes that they will listen, and the change agents will instill that in them as well. And we are going with the smaller teams, just so it's on a whole level that everybody is participating and working with.
So I'm just taking off from what Cheryl asked. You talked about coming up with identifying the 4 pillars. So how do we reconcile you identifying the 4 pillars and involving our employees?
Yeah, well, actually, so we developed those 4 pillars based on the survey that you conducted to all your employees, and the ideas of accountability and of the other 3 pillars that we had also mentioned were all areas that were seen as lacking in the organization by your employees. So we did consider direct feedback from your employees when developing these pillars, and so in that way we have involved them, and we would always want to reinforce that open door policy and discussing any changes that they might feel would be necessary.
What was the
press release that your immediate 0 to 6 months, you're saying have a press conference. Why would I want to mention the scandal again? It's not, direct with my company, and it really doesn't represent from what I've heard from the Halcyon employees. It's a new startup and 15 employees. So why would I want to bring it to the attention of the media again?
We want to make sure that as your former Halcyon employees are onboarding into your organization, we want to make sure that there are clients out there who are going to be aware of the scandal. You are hiring a mass amount of new employees, which is great because they do have those skills that will benefit your organization. But as I said, there is clients that are going to be aware of the scandal without addressing it. Just as we are trying to keep transparency with our employees, we want to also keep transparency within our clients, and so we are able to serve them better. As well as I mentioned, with employees, there is a chance, as your employees were mentioning on your discussion boards and your intranet, that some of them do feel slightly uncomfortable working with employees who were associated with the scandal. We want to make sure that your organization is able to emphasize that not all these employees were involved in the scandal, and we want to make sure, again, that any external media sources, any clients, as revenue is a huge important pillar for your organization, we want to make sure that this is sustained and that you guys are able to grow in the future with all these new employees.
You've identified three important issues to our organization, and you chose a strategy to sort of phase in our response to them. So dealing with cultural issues, then pay issues. Is there a reason, can you explain why you chose that as opposed to giving us some options to deal with all of them simultaneously?
To deal with all three of these issues right here. So we think that the issues of compensation and the pushback are directly addressed in our compensation plan, and we definitely want to work with you.